back to the basics, y'all. This is Fantastics Four 232. And I got to give a shout out to our fellow community member, Sam Gerthy. He said you should really check out John Byrne's run on Fantastic Four. So I asked him what was the run issues. So he said 232, and I think he said 290, somewhere around there. And I went, wait a minute. I looked up the cover for 232, and I went, don't I have this? Because there for a while, I was just grabbing books whenever I see them, like at swap meets or garage sales, yada, 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 and I threw them in a box, and I'll read them eventually. But this issue in particular just stood out in my mind. I went, wait a minute. So I went to my queue. There it was, which prompted me to go log all my stuff into. If you guys, speaking of which, if you guys are looking for a comic app to use, the one that I would recommend is called CLZ. I don't know how it is now because I know a lot of us are sick and tired of subscription-based apps. I am too, don't get me wrong. When I downloaded it, it was a one-time fee of you could download the free version, and I think you can get up to like 100 or 200 comics. And then at the time, it was like $5 or $10 for a one-time purchase, and then it's unlimited. And when they started talking about the whole subscription model, what was it called? Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a minute, guys. It said that I was grandfathered in. So I don't know, but CLZ is really good, and you're able to scan the comics with the barcodes, yada, yada, yada. And they're not sponsoring this, by the way. I'm just telling you what I use and what I recommend. So, 232. John Byrne takes over. I pulled this issue out, knew I had to review it, and I loved reading it. Because even if you look at the cover, this definitely looks like John Byrne, but also in my mind, this reminds me of the art style, in a sense, reminds me of a mixture of both Jack Kirby, then of course we see John Byrne, and then also in a sense, in essence, I also see George Perez when he was at Marvel too, because he did a stint on Fantastic Four too, and I just kind of see it all here, making this awesome, gorgeous cover. Now, the print date on this was July 1981 and is aptly called Back to the Basics. Now, to talk about who made this book, this is John Byrne, Words and Pictures, Bjorn Hain, I believe is how you pronounce it, inks, Jim Novak, letters, Glynis Wine, colors, Jim Salicrup, editor, and Jim Shooter, editor-in-chief. And going back now, think of all these big names that are on these comics now that back in the day people didn't really think that way. But you look back now and you're like, damn, I wish that we had big cats like that on books nowadays. Because, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love when we see a new talent come in. But anytime I see John Byrne, even to this day, I get excited. Now it's going to take me back. I think Diablo's his name. All right. So, the Fantastic Four, my old and much vaunted foes, shall soon learn who is truly most powerful. Soon I shall destroy them as easily as I have conjured their images. The arcane potions fill the air with their noxious fumes, and candlelight glimmers in eyes not a little mad. He is called Diablo, and he is the master of the arts alchemical. You guys know what I'm trying to say. But one thing I think that a lot of us that enjoy John Byrne is he was the first artist. No, Dave Cockrum was. But then John Byrne did a long stint with Chris Claremont, and you could see how he inspired John Byrne because you feel that Claremontisms in anything he writes, from Superman, Fantastic Four, and definitely Alpha Flight. So that's just another thing to just see that Byrne kind of took a page from Claremont and made it his own thing, and that's why he's still one of those really highly regarded comic artists and writers. Now, what I like how it says back to basics is where we start out with this whole thing. And now I always talk about in modern comics, whenever they do quirky stuff, I get frustrated. And I bet you guys are thinking, there's quirky stuff back in the day. Yes. But it wasn't like rainbows and ponies and MySpace.com. And let me give you an example of that. Now that I've had my little jokey joke. So he's in the midst of all of this. And then we see this cranky old Kieran knock on the door. But even as Diablo cackles at his anticipated victory. Mr. Obed, you open this door. Yes, Ms. Mulligan, is there some problem? Oh, no, Ms. Mulligan, I wouldn't think such a thing. What are those horrible smells? Are you cooking in your room, Mr. Obed? Well, see that you don't. And as the meek little man closes the door, vile woman, always prying, forcing me to waste precious potions on making spells. But soon she will pay. Soon she and her sniveling, nooping ilk will be crushed beneath my hill. Yes, very soon. So essentially what he's doing is he's creating avatars. Now, right there, it's funny, but it serves the story because he has to pretend to be this meek, mild-mannered dude so that he can have this apartment, which kind of begs the question of why isn't he like in a cave or his own fortress of solitude? But nonetheless, it makes me laugh. Then we are brought into Fantastic Four. Sue's getting her hair cut. And while all this is happening, Mr. Taldini, look, something's happening to the construction site out on the street. Weird, what can make all the dirt and rock fly into the air like that? What indeed?
Hear me, humans. I am for she who is the invisible girl. Woe betide those who stand in my way.
And just excellent way to just start the intensity. We kind of get the villain and then that old school way of saying, meanwhile, in mild manner, Sue Storm gets her hair cut at her local saloon and then action. So back to basics. So you can very much feel how John Byrne was very pulling his Jack Kirby and Stan Lee roots here. And Sue's doing everything that she can to fight this guy. And I love how she's just able to change real quick. She goes, well, thank you, Mr. Tonellini. Good thing Reed suggested I practice controlling my powers of invincibility by keeping my uniform invisible under my street clothes. And now I can shed my undergarments without making the front page of the National Enquirer. So it's just a cool little way to show how she's grown since she was the invisible girl and is now the invisible woman and more control of her power. But with that said, she tries to take on this beast. And he goes,
surrender and your death shall be merciful and quick. Turning invisible will avail you not.
Maybe not tall, dark, and ugly, but if I could just reach my purse and the Fantastic Four flare gun.
Foolish female, your powers are nothing against mine.
And he basically just buries her in cement. So it's like that, oh no! And then meanwhile, across town, we see that Ben is leaving the theater with his, it's his girlfriend at this time, Alicia Masters. Now, as much as I'm not huge on modern comics, and I've said this before, it's no secret, I will say that I'm glad that they finally married these two in modern times, because it was just they were boyfriend and girlfriend forever. So I'm glad that they tied the knot. If they've been broken up, then we all riot, because I love how, you know, even though Alicia is blind, she still sees Ben for what he truly is instead of on the outside. And that's why I love the whole juxtaposition of them leaving the theater, which they were watching The Elephant Man. She goes, oh, Ben, wasn't that a wonderful play? So terribly sad and yet so beautiful. Yeah, it had its moments. Oh, crumbs, what a lousy time for it to start raining. Raining? What are you talking about? It isn't raining. Holy cow, she's right. It's the rest of the street is bone dry. It's only on me. And so we see another one of these avatars basically slap Ben into a living bubble of water, and he starts to suffocate. And as blood-red veins begin to draw closed across the thing's brain, high in the air over New York's legendary New York Central Park, a bright red comet resolves itself into the shape of a man named Johnny Storm, the Human Torch. At his unspoken command, the torch flame diminishes and he drops towards the park. So this woman, what's her name? Frankie. Wait. Yeah, that's her name. Anyway, they're in love, but she's a little off-put by him basically calling him a show-off for him being the Human Torch, which I think is kind of BS, but we all do know that Johnny's a bit of a hothead. And they're trying to get their relationship back on track, but Johnny is hit by a wind monster, which would be, other than water, what would be another good effect against fire? Wind. I mean, yes, it does breathe oxygen, but it puts him out, knocks him out, and then we get into Ben. Now, this is one thing about Byrne that I also love is everyone always praised Kirby. Like, if you remember reading his early X-Men, or when he went over to DC and did the Fourth World with the New Gods, or the Inhumans, anytime he was, like, in an area, like so, he was always paying attention to the details of the room. So even though maybe not everything got fully colored because A, color restrictions, and B, just for the sake of time, he always made these inventions look so intricate. And I love that Byrne took a page from that and shows all these awesome contraptions that Reed is working on. He goes, my sensors indicate there's a definite influx of peculiar energies to the city. but the precise natures of these entities seems outside the scanner's capacity to measure. I wouldn't have thought any energy forms would be on the analyzing capabilities of these. That's odd. Something's become almost unbearably hot in here. And so he's thinking at first that it's Johnny, but then where he is put up against a fire monster. And I love that the way that he gets out is by basically becoming a ping pong, because he's Mr. Rubber. With hardly a second thought to his own safety, Reed Richards launches himself through the surrounding flame and into the plunging through the cool outside air towards the rooftops below. That was too close. Only my speed saved me from serious injury. And then, as per usual, it is Reed who finds out how to stop all these different elementals that are attacking them, because they are essentially antithesis of the Fantastic Four. So Reed says we have to trade partners. But the way that's built up, like, for example, Ben is just on the verge of dying. He makes it to a scuba shop, and this woman plunges down one of the I got my scuba license, I can't remember, the respirator into his mouth so he can breathe. And when the water creature realizes he can't hurt him, he starts drowning her. Don't just stand there, you blasted idiot. Get another air tank. But we only have the one demonstration model. None of the others have air in them. Crud. So Ben, being the hero that he is, gives her the respirator and he goes, okay, water boy, make your blasted move. As you wish. Splash. But before you can splash him, Sue uses her force field. And that's where Reed's saying you need to trade partners. And it's just a very entertaining, relatively self-containing story. And it even forces Sue to basically force her to use her powers more. Reed says, Ben, not now. Please be quiet. Sue, we need all your maximum concentration to achieve this goal. You understand, Sue, you have to shrink your invisible force field bubble until the intense pressure turns the air to liquid, because they're trying to trap the air monster. I don't understand, but I'm not sure I'll be able to make the tremendous strain. Slowly, inexorably, the invisible girl compresses the sphere of unseen energies around the elemental. The more I shrink the bubble, the harder it becomes to continue compressing it. But I mustn't weaken. I can't read. Everyone is depending on me. Her face grows flushed. Knots of pains tighten around her eyes, but Susan Richard relinquishes by not the tiniest fraction the steady pressure until, poof, they defeat him. So I just love that. Even though he's going back to basics, he's also having the Fantastic Four grow. And I love essentially how the main baddie is vanquished. So if you all have enjoyed what you've seen, please first and foremost support your local comic shop or wherever it is like to get your action figures and comics, and pick up this series. Highly recommend it. And as you can't see, I'm gushing because it's John Byrne. And if you've enjoyed this review, really would appreciate if you take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Helps the channel more than you could possibly know. And if you won't mind hitting that fancy little flame on bell, next subscribe. That way as I continue to upload content, you guys get notified. Come to the channel, and I love talking with you and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments or the socials, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, everyone.